Welcome back to the Wealth Witches podcast. I'm your host, Katelyn Magnuson. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I am recording this a month away from my 35th birthday, and I'm going to take some time to reflect on the past year and some lessons, and then also look forward into the next year. We're going to have an astrological, woo, witchy lilt to this, and I'm really excited to dive in because it has been one hell of a year. And I'm headed into one hell of a next year. So without further ado, like I said, my birthday is May 7th. I'll be turning 35. And my big three, I am a Taurus sun, I'm a Scorpio rising, and I'm a Libra moon. And a few of the things as I worked with my astrology this last year that I have really been able to narrow down is making sure that when the moon is in Libra, I get much better at isolating myself and having quiet time. And that's been honestly one of my easiest or biggest takeaways from the last year when it comes to working with my astrology and then also with working with my cycle. And I'm really just going to dive in on this. So, with my cycle, my menstrual cycle, I've gotten to the point where I am tracking it. And I have a couple of days where I know I'm not going to feel as good. I'm not going to be as social. I'm not going to necessarily want to do outward facing work. And I very much equate that, although they don't overlap that often, I very much equate that to when the moon is in Libra. It's a really similar feeling for me. And it's in my 12th house. It allows me to, have kind of some of that introvert quiet time. It's great when it falls over a weekend, but if it does fall during a work week, I have my calendar blocked out. I make sure to work in some self-care, take a bath, read a book. If the weather's nice, get outside, or if I'm able to go into town and go, do a little day of treats. That tends to work really well for me as well. But it's not days where I'm doing a lot of outward extroverting, socializing, really showing up in my business or my life. It's much quieter. And what was interesting for me this past year, as I'm, my 34th year, I've been in 11th house perfection, and Mercury has been the time lord of that. And that was a really different experience for me, especially going through the Mercury retrogrades, Mercury is going or just went direct today, actually, I think this morning. And normally Mercury retrogrades don't tend to really have a huge impact on me. They have kind of this, outward tangential impact, right? Because the people around me are getting impacted or the tech around me may be getting impacted. But this year it has been more direct in just slowing things down when it goes retrograde. And so I'm very excited. This next year I move into a 12th house perfection with Venus as my time lord. And I am very excited for that because the more that I learn about myself, especially with this 12th house perfection, I'm really excited for it because I am looking into what it means for this next year for me. And a lot of this next year is going to look like, you know, continuing the evolution of letting go of what no longer aligns with me, working on one of my biggest goals this next year is to make money and have more fun. And it really for like being more creative is what that really looks like for me. Being able to express myself more on the podcast, being able to create more on social media, being able to create more programs and have more of an impact is all so much more fun. It all feels very Venusian for me. And so, beauty, pleasure, harmony, values, relationships, all of that is very Venusian. And with that in my 12th house perfection for this coming year, it can look like spiritual and creative practices, maybe evolving, doing a lot of cleaning up in my life. What doesn't align with me and with what I want to be doing anymore. Working on, healing with beauty, connection, being more drawn to art, to love, to softness, to, really making that creative magic is what I look at that here. And so I'm excited for the next year as I transition, from year 35 to year 36, being able to really focus on myself and how I show up in the world and who I am and what that looks like. And it's been one heck of a year, both politically and living in the US and being a woman in this day and age, being a business owner, being a millennial, living through my, you know, what number of once in a lifetime events. So for that, it can definitely feel really heavy. And so something that I've been focusing a lot on, and I'm going to continue working on and actually plays into these practices that I'm kind of looking at for this next year ahead is where can I be focusing on the joy? Where can I be focusing on the gratitude? Where can I be focusing on the fun and the play and the rest? Because all of that to me is very much an act of rebellion. Where can I be helping others? Where can I be deepening my community? And that's something that I have focused on over the last year, deepening my community, building out my collaborations, my friends, my network, for lack of a better term, both professionally and personally. And there's a lot of overlap there. And figuring out who I can lean on and who can lean on me. I also did an immense amount of travel, and this is a little over a year ago, but for anyone that's watching the video of this, you may know I ended up with a full sleeve tattoo on my left arm that I am in love with. And I was able to go back right after my birthday last year and get some touch-ups done. And then I went back to the EU. I was in Spain for a brief stint in February and was able to get in with the same artist and start work on my second sleeve. And it has been one of the most empowering things I have ever done. I wasn't new to tattoos. I had three to begin with prior to this, prior to the sleeve journey, we will call it. And I've always been really self-conscious in particular of my arms. I've always had bigger arms. My mom has bigger arms. My grandmother has bigger arms. It's just something that we genetically all have. But I was made fun of them or they've been pointed out growing up. And it's just, things stick with you, right? And I've been all different body sizes, all different weights, all different body compositions. And I've never really loved my arms. I've always been complimented on my hair. I have, this crazy auburn curly hair that I love. I love my hair. It's something that I'm definitely a little bit vain about. And for the first time, after intentionally curating what my body looks like in terms of these tattoos over the last year and a half, I was at an event earlier in March in an area. I don't socialize a lot. I don't get out of the house a lot with people that don't know me already. And I was complimented by no fewer than five people. Once on my hair, five times on my tattoos. And it was such an interesting experience to me. It meant more to be getting feedback on something that I had consciously chosen for myself, not something that I had been born with. And I'm looking forward to more of that in different ways. I'm looking forward to curating more of my personal style over the next year, getting really comfortable with my clothing choices and what colors I'm wearing or how I'm dressing, and it really being a reflection of myself. Because as someone that's neurodivergent, I have a tendency to wear black, navy blue, burgundy, and variations of teal to emerald and a little bit of gray. Almost all of my closet is a little bit of olive, but it's those colors. But it's jeans, it's a sweater, it's a t-shirt, and I want to have a little bit more fun with it. And so really excited for that as sort of the next evolution of all of this. And for anyone that's following me on TikTok, I have been taking a GLP-1 med for about 9 months now, intentionally for a few reasons. One, for weight loss, to look like who I feel like inside. My external body wasn't looking or feeling like how I felt. I would look at pictures of myself and not recognize who I was or not have it align with the image that I was. And so I very much look at it as affirming care to an extent. But I've had the additional side effect of working on my dopamine habits when it comes to food, when it comes to treats, when it comes to making sure I'm feeding myself without being obsessive. And in the past, like I said earlier, I've been many different weights, and it normally comes from a place of obsessiveness. It's something that I've seen in my family and several of my family members. If I try to lose weight, it's the only thing that I focus on for the next 18 months, to the exclusion of outings, to the exclusion of foods that I love, to tracking macros. And none of that was what I wanted for myself. And I got into a really comfortable spot with feeding myself nourishing food, but not really seeing any progress on what my body composition looked like. And so over the last, 9 or so months, I've lost about 35 pounds, and I don't have an end goal in mind, but one of the most wonderful aspects of that has been that I am comfortable moving my body. My joints, I have a lot of inflammation that was gone. I'm hypermobile, goes along with the neurodivergent side of things. It's a very common comorbidity, and I'm sure I suspect there are some other things going on there too. But after, having I'd broken my ankle in 2019, old sports injuries, it was a little bit of a barrier to keep myself moving really regularly. And so a GLP-1 med has really given me the ability and the spoons to move my body more often. And so something that I've been working to prioritize about 80% of the time is making sure that I'm walking at least 5,000 steps a day. I love lifting weights. I love swimming. I love being in the water. But for me, I needed something that was easy, that even if I'm low energy, even if I just scroll TikTok while I hop on the treadmill for 5,000 steps. And that has been a really easy change. So I'm looking to make more of those in the next year ahead, with my wardrobe, with dressing how I feel comfortable. And all of this feels like it's been building. It's been, habit stacking or routine stacking one after the next to feel very sustainable and very comfortable. I'm really excited for that at the end of the day. I'm excited to be wrapping up this year with Mercury as my time lord, moving into, my 12th house perfection. Venus is my time lord, and getting to take the lessons and the routines and the structures and the communication practices and the clarity that has come from this past year in what I want to be doing more of and how I see the business evolving and how Wealth Witches has grown and evolved. And I started one of my favorite things, and I talked about this in the year-end wrap-up. One of my favorite things that I did finally after a few years was we ran the mastermind again, the Get Your Finance Shit Together mastermind. And I used to love running it. And we ran it this year with the woo, with the astrology, with the nervous system regulation added to it. And it was a hit. We got such great feedback from the participants. I had so much fun. We had some really cool guests. And so I'm looking to do so much more of this in the next year and more. I have some interesting potential travel related collaborations and really special humans that I'm looking to work with in June and beyond of 2025. So we'll make sure we're updating you on those as we move along. But some of my favorite practices, and I'm interested to hear yours. So if you're listening to this and you want to, comment on Instagram or send me a DM, I would love to hear what practices you have around your birthday, to celebrate yourself. So something that I'm looking to do this year is have a little bit of a shindig. We're going to have some of my favorite people to our house. We're going to, set intention. I've been seeing on TikTok, instead of singing happy birthday, the guests are singing a variation of like happier, healthier, wealthier, those sorts of things, and like actively doing a little bit of, group manifestation essentially. So I am looking to do that this year. I have a birthday cake that I'm looking to order that's going to be really fun and tarot inspired. I haven't gotten further on that yet. I'm trying to figure out what I want it to be. And then I have been making a habit. And again, if you're watching the video, which I hope you are, but I know not everyone's visual, I have this most gorgeous deck of tarot cards, the Weaver Tarot. I have tarot cards from them and I have oracle cards from them. And I love them both, but they're just like absolutely stunning. And I, at least a couple times a week, pull tarot cards and ask some targeted questions. And so I am planning to do that again this year, leading up to my birthday. My birthday's in the middle of the week, so I'm going to take kind of part of the week off. I'll have friends up on one of the weekends before or after. And then I roll into, June with the solstice, and I'm going to be doing sort of a continuation of spiritual practices, witchy practices, and I'm looking to actually do a really fun boudoir session with a couple of my girlfriends in around the solstice. And I am thrilled for that. That's my birthday present to myself for this year. And this really just fun, divine feminine, like empowerment, feminine rage, like sort of pulling all of that into it and just really getting a little weird with it. So I'm very excited for that. Knowing me and knowing that it'll be May, I will most likely end up taking a bath. I love baths. For anyone that has seen pictures of my house, I have this absurd, I'm only 5'4", and when we moved in here, I have this like absurd, I think 6 foot long copper tub that is the light of my life. And I have bath bombs and salts, and one of my best friends sent me like fun witchy bath soak. I feel like there's a better name for it, but those are all the things that I really like to do. I'm really curious though, if you have a go-to, ritual or maybe a theme that you incorporate for each year. But for me, it's more of looking at a little bit of reflection. I get a little introverted. I want to go have some fun with people that I really love and enjoy spending time with. And basically always spend time in the water. It's normally too cold to go. Maybe we'll do a polar plunge that weekend. It would still be cold enough and the snow should be gone. So a medium polar plunge, a spring plunge, we'll call it. But that might be really fun to go do and jump in the water down in the creek. For me, so like I said, the biggest things showing up as I move into this next year are very much looking at how I incorporate more fun, how I incorporate more creativity, more play, how I bring more energy to what I'm doing, how I'm showing up, how I'm working with clients, how we're working with our team, what services we're offering, and getting rid of services that don't feel good anymore, shifting out of roles that I don't want to be doing, shifting team members into roles. How can we be arranging things so it's aligning best for me, best for them? I don't have a word necessarily for this next year outside of fun. It really, I think, is coming down to fun as, I would say, fun and community as an act of rebellion and rest. So I'm looking at being my most authentic, happiest, fun loving, light. Light is in the opposite of heaviness. There is so much heaviness in the world right now. We are bombarded with it. I am speaking on it regularly on social media. And so, where can I be acknowledging what's going on, acknowledging that things are probably going to get really difficult this year, and also holding the space for the duality of still living my life, still finding happiness, still finding joy, still connecting with humans, still building my community, still enjoying my one beautiful life that I have. So that's what I'm looking to do for this next year. If you don't know what your perfection is, your annual perfection, I absolutely recommend you go back through and we'll see if we can link it in the notes. But we did a whole episode on annual perfections with my favorite astrologist, Robin Langford with Wicked Veracity. And it's a really great place to start if you don't know a lot about astrology to get an idea of how did she phrase it? You get an idea of your cake flavor for the year and then your frosting for the year. And so kind of what the theme is, and then, what like the theme and the vibe. And that can be really helpful if you're just getting going or want to learn more about what this year ahead potentially holds for you on your birthday. And it's very easy to do. And you can look at it for other people in your life because you just need their age. And again, if you haven't already, or I don't know, I would love to know your sun, your moon, your rising, and something that you're doing for your own birthday celebrations. If you haven't already joined Wealth Witches and you're not a current tax client or bookkeeping client and you want to hop in, we cover all sorts of things like this. And we have really wonderful special guests that come in a couple of times a year. We talk about nervous system regulation, we talk about astrology, and we also talk about the nitty gritty, like paying your quarterly estimated taxes, running a successful and profitable business, pricing yourself, making sure you're not ending up in jail for committing tax fraud. So it's this really nice holistic blend of what we have going on. And then at the end of the day, the thing that I wish for all of you is safety, clarity, and contentment, whatever that looks like in your life. That's where I'm going to leave you for this episode. So I'm excited to chat soon, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your month.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Witches podcast. I hope our magical money talks have left you feeling empowered and inspired. Remember, wealth isn't just about dollars in the bank, it's about abundance and financial freedom in all aspects of your life. I'm Katelyn Magnuson, encouraging you to keep challenging the status quo and embrace your inner witch on this financial journey. Until next time, stay magical.